Said to speak ships of sealing wax, of cabbages and of kings, of why the sea is boiling hot and weather pigs have wings. It's actually a jamming little tune. I was getting into it there. I need to make that intro longer, shouldn't I? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to take care of the very beginning episode, the very first attempt, the very first time of the Blast Radius. And I have got stuff talking in my ear, which is absolutely useless. And since this is the first time, we're making this sort of a dry run and doing the best we can with what we got. We got a handful of ideas, a handful of dreams and aspirations. We're going to see how this all works out, right? So, without further ado and without further gilding the lily, I'm going to bring you the host of our show tonight, Captain Curmudgeon.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon and Mount Sasquatch, Sasquatch Mountain, good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the very first ever edition of the Blast Radius. Glad you could join us. You just heard from my friend, Mr. Sasquatch. I've got a couple of things. He's got a couple of things. We're going to do a couple of things, and I really do sort of like that intro. If I'm being honest, the first version he made, I really liked the visual aspect. I said we might have to talk about that music, so I took matters into my own hands and wrote something in my head as I was mowing the lawn, and then spent about 4 hours throwing it together. I'm pretty pleased with the result, even though Lady Curmudgeon, when she heard it, she made a point that it was difficult to argue with. She said, "Honey, it sounds like pro wrestler entrance music," which, you know, she ain't wrong. It's more heavy metalish than the things I normally do, but you know, when you're coming up with something to play over nuclear bomb blast footage, I think it fits thematically pretty well. Get yourself back up here, Squatch.
I can do that very thing as soon as I find the right button. Hey, buttons.
All right, so how are we going to proceed here? Do you want me to do my little decline of Western civilization news roundup right off the bat?
All right, how are you presenting this? Anchor style, or is it going to be monologue style? Is it going to be you got pictures?
I guess sort of monologue / extemporaneous.
All right, so let's try it in this shape of an idea.
All right, that's good. Now we've got kind of a two-front decline of Western civilization update. As you may have heard, the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin was vandalized by Marxist revolutionaries who, of course, will always find an excuse to pull down statues and vandalize monuments. 3 years ago, of course, it was George Floyd, and today it is nonsense climate cultism. But the actual objective is always effectively the same. It's to eradicate history and erase a society's cultural memory, because Marxism can only prosper when there is no past and no future, just an ever-present present. And the biggest irony is that these climate cultists, who all claim to be anti-capitalist, of course, well, they are stooges for the most evil sort of capitalism there is, because, pro tip, if your worldview is exactly the same as the worldview of all the richest, most powerful, most evil people in the world, my friend, you have probably been hoodwinked. The other front in this update is Canadian school libraries have been forced to remove all pre-2008 books from their shelves because the erasure of history is a multi-front operation, of course. And it's always been a core component of every Marxist revolutionary movement. Once you've pulled down all the statues and banned all the free speech, well, then you go after the libraries. And anybody in Canada who thinks they are on the right track in terms of public policy, they should probably take a drive through downtown Vancouver, just like I did last weekend. I was wondering if the horror stories I had heard about junkies openly shooting up in the middle of the sidewalk were overstated. And I am here to report that they were not, because it was just about the worst thing I have ever seen in my entire natural-born life. Oh, also, here's another fun thing. Dove is facing a boycott, the soap company Dove, after partnering with a fat liberation activist race hoaxer who weighs about 600 pounds. And it's funny that story should come up, because when I was on the cruise last week, I wound up seated next to a Dutch naval architect when I was at dinner on Wednesday night, who had just come aboard the ship to do a study of the vessel's stability characteristics. And as he explained it to me, the passengers in recent years, they have become so incredibly fat that the shipbuilders now have to start factoring that into the designs for their upcoming vessels. And you can't make that stuff up. Oh, also, we've got the Susanna Gibson cam horror scandal. Susanna Gibson, as you may know, is a Democratic candidate for the Virginia House of Delegates who, after she had announced her campaign for that office, decided to raise money for her campaign by, how shall we say, performing sex acts on camera on the internet for money. And as chance would have it, there is not one single Democrat who has been asked about the subject who is willing to say, no, you know what? We don't want people like that in our party. And it's pretty remarkable that we have reached a state of moral decline where one of our major parties is unwilling to say, no, we don't want candidates who get ass fucked on money for camera to be running for office. And that pretty well puts the exclamation point on it. Back to you, Squatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
That's like my mic drop, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that was actually seemed pretty appropriate. I kind of like that. That'll
I kind of like that too. That wasn't bad.
We might have to do something else for an action button. I think that might have to just stay there, right there where it's doing. Well, no, that's crazy, dude. I have no issue with cam horse. I know this sounds weird.
It's free country and all that.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's one of the oldest professions on earth. It's just been syndicated so heavily that it means nothing anymore.
It seems so incredibly quaint now that 30 years ago, or 25 as the crow flies, Bill Clinton actually got impeached for getting sucked off under his desk by a fat intern. That seems like kindergarten stuff now, based on where the Democrats are today, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, kindergarten stuff is exactly where the Democrats are today.
Yes.
You have to say it that way.
Because they are most decidedly coming after your kindergartner with everything they've got.
Well, look at it this way. There are two sides to just about every argument, and only one side can procreate.
I won't argue with you there. Yeah, hello, Sunshine. Glad you could join us. Welcome. First commenter on the first show. Oh, wait. Ben Grimm got in first. Hi, Ben.
Is that a tape, or are you just eyeballing us? I can't tell. Sunshine's a good egg. If she decides to take, remember I told you about what I said about Queen Bird, about how, right? Okay, Sunshine's another one of those folks.
Oh, good.
She does things for channels she thinks are worth doing things for, and ignores channels that are problematic or become an issue in some way. I mean, hey, judge how
I like to think my channel is problematic in a good way.
Right. No, I'm going for aggressively average myself. High yield mediocre.
High yield mediocrity. I like that. I might have to remember that one.
I don't want to be controversial in any way. I just want to be just slightly interesting enough to continue growing. I've got a little time to put towards this. It's okay. All right. So the next step, I think, should be the shorts, right?
Take it away.
For a minute or two. Let's see if I can make this work right. All right. So that's sort of right. I believe that is correct. Say something.
Something.
All right.
Right at your skates. It dumped into your skates.
Homie just shot frozen water with a bullet at close range.
Wow.
And now the bullet's spinning
the bullet
on the ice.
Look at it spinning like a top.
That's pretty awesome.
Right here.
I would never have thought.
There it goes.
Bet he couldn't do that again.
One fact.
Actually, you can apparently. If you're using a full metal jacket, it just bounces out of the ice and lands nearby.
You couldn't spin it like that.
Only in America do you have leisure activities like that.
Or possibly certain areas of Russia.
Perhaps.
That dog just talked.
Don't take it slow. I got these places to go.
This is early days in my channel when I was playing with editing and stuff.
I gotta go because I got something to show.
Sure what I was doing
one
with
day
it.
will know.
It's just what she said. And this makes me think of my daughter.
Hello, how you doing?
Must be nice working in the fucking air, you fucking bitch.
Dude, yeah, that's some of Thor's work there.
What is going on in here? We get crack at the
Let me see if I can make this go back to where it's supposed to be. One button makes it do it back right there. And then
I love me some Tyrone Biggums.
Oh, yeah, I got him. Most of them involve crack at the end.
We need more Dave Chappelle in the world. There is not enough Dave Chappelle in the world currently.
I mean, other than the fact that he's like a full-on communist, yeah. I don't denigrate him for being a communist. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, but at the same time,
but he made topical, incisive humor that was relevant and thought-provoking, and there is none of that anymore.
And would answer to no one about it, like simply
right. Yep.
Yeah.
But now you can't do that because the woke rage mob comes after you, and your ass gets canceled and exiled to the hinterlands.
Yeah, you just get depersoned. I mean, Orwell was so on the nose, man. It's uncanny. Oh, and guess what? Big Brother isn't your neighbor watching you. It's not some dude down the street. It's not some FBI guy. It's an AI bot who's been trained to listen for certain words and look for certain facial features.
Yeah,
and they're coming to get you for your mad face.
That's the only thing really that Orwell didn't foresee was that all this stuff was going to happen through under the guise of the internet.
I have to kind of I wonder about that. I think maybe he drew that back in while he was writing the book because would you have believed it back then if someone told you that?
Because it would have been something that was completely beyond anybody's comprehension.
Right.
I mean, even up until my lifetime and your lifetime, the internet was still in the realm of futurism, like a world where you can just instantly communicate with anybody in the world over your computer. That was still science fiction until I was like a freaking teenager.
Right. I mean, but then again, there's war games too. So science fiction and science fact do run sort of a concurrency.
Right. Yeah. And stuff like that existed obviously in some nascent form, but the only people that had it were governments and militaries.
Right. And up until the mid 90s, actually around the turn of the century, you could just go to college courses. You could just go to your computer and pop in the address to the college course, and there would be a camera in the room and a microphone in the room, and there'd be some world-renowned lecturer sitting there giving a lecture.
Yep. Yeah, colleges were ahead of the curve too. It was just colleges and governments and militaries.
Basically.
But it happened so quickly, like within a matter of 5 minutes, that all of a sudden, a few years later, everybody had it in their house, and then a few years later, everybody has it in their pocket, and now it's completely, pretty much destroyed the ability for human beings to interact with other human beings in the real world. The only thing they know how to interact with is the little magic rectangle.
Yep. And so then we come along like this, and we make more and differing and varying little magic rectangles. We just change them around so that they seem more interesting. You've got something you wanted to do? I don't have a transition for that yet, so I say we just do this thing and let you go for it. I
was gonna read Ben's comment here.
Go for it.
Mortified, having grown up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the last thing I'd do is shoot at the ice I'm standing on. Eat a Tide Pod, moron.
Man, I'm from Georgia. I have no idea about ice.
Maybe he did have a Tide Pod, and maybe had it in there like a chaw of Red Man tobacco. Who know, I'm not one to cast aspersions on the manner in which another man eats Tide Pods, after all. So yeah, you want me to read out my Ronnie Reagan speech?
Don't you got like a slideshow or something you were gonna do?
Yeah, I was gonna play that while I read the speech. If you don't want me to do that yet, then we don't have to.
No, go for it. I don't know how you would do that. I want to see how you would do that.
All right, let me see if I can figure this out. Feel free to keep talking while I fiddle around with the equipment.
All right. Well, then we'll go to a slightly different variation of weird. I've been working on some voices recently. You want to hear a couple?
Yes.
All right. So my brother pointed out to me that apparently when I was a kid, I always did a really good Yogi Bear, and that I should probably work on that a little bit more. And absentmindedly sitting around, I've started saying random phrases in Yogi Bear voice. And one of the things that come across was, "Hey, boo boo, why are they turning all the frogs gay?"
Oh, at first I thought you said Yogi Berra. But you said Yogi Bear.
Yogi Bear. Like, I know the good Bear. I don't have a good Bear voice.
It ain't over till it's over.
It ain't over till it's over. Always like Snagglepuss too. Exit, stage left. And then they're Muttley. You remember Muttley from Wacky Races?
Oh yeah.
Do a decent butt hit occasionally. Dumbass.
That was cool.
I need a Beavis. My Beavis.
Fire.
I need a Beavis. Not a Beavis that's useless. It's like
I'm not even gonna do Cornholio. I could if I wanted to, but I'm not gonna.
I don't know. I can't stretch this shirt up over my head with my hair in. There's no way. You got anything shaking loose over there?
I'm still working on this.
I dig it. I got some banners over here. Did you notice the one I had up? This is a Caucasian Sasquatch Forced Labor Project, a Captain Curmudgeon.
Oh yeah.
Scheme produced by Super Chad Jim Eagle, bribes and corruption control provided by Lorenzo. That's he, him to you, she, her to your sister. And if beautiful. You need further elaboration, I will provide it then. We've been trying to reach you concerning your vehicle's extended warranty. I tickle myself too much. Do I need to take that out?
I'm having trouble making the slideshow happen, but I'm just going to leave it like this and read out the speech, and you put whatever on the screen you want to. How's that?
I got you. Watch this. This is going to be great. We're going to mute that. We're going to let that play, and you do your speech. It'll show the moronitude of the world while you read. It's great. Great idea.
This is a speech given by Ronald Reagan on 27 October 1964. It's become known to history as the "A Time for Choosing" speech. It was during the there's a common misconception that this speech was given at the 64 Republican convention, but it wasn't. It was actually given several months later, the week before the election. It was done in a rented auditorium in Los Angeles with an invited audience, and Ronald Reagan was not in any way any sort of political figure yet at this point. He was known to most Americans primarily as a semi-retired actor whom they knew from a lot of B westerns and war movies. But this was the speech that really put him on the map as a political figure and ultimately enabled him to run for and win the California governor's office 2 years after this. And then, of course, in 1980, the presidency, which he should have won in 1976, but that's how much the Republican Party likes conservatives, just then as today. So, but as you listen to this, setting aside the specific references to people and events from 1964, you will notice that this speech is uncannily topical and incisive for our time, just as it was 60 years ago when it was given. Quote, "Thank you very much. Thank you and good evening. The sponsor has been identified, but unlike most television programs, the performer hasn't been provided with a script. As a matter of fact, I have been permitted to choose my own words and discuss my own ideas regarding the choice that we face in the next few weeks. I have spent most of my life as a Democrat. I recently have seen fit to follow another course. I believe that the issues confronting us cross party lines. Now, one side in this campaign has been telling us that the issues of this election are the maintenance of peace and prosperity. The line has been used, we've never had it so good. But I have an uncomfortable feeling that this prosperity isn't something on which we can base our hopes for the future. No nation in history has ever survived a tax burden that reached a third of its national income. Today, 37 cents out of every dollar earned in this country is the tax collector's share. And yet our government continues to spend $17 million a day more than the government takes in. We haven't balanced our budget 28 out of the last 34 years. We've raised our debt limit 3 times in the last 12 months, and now our national debt is 1.5 times bigger than all the combined debts of all the nations of the world. We have $15 billion of gold in our treasury, and we don't own an ounce. Foreign dollar claims are $27.3 billion. And we've just had to announce that the dollar of 1939 will now purchase 45 cents in its total value. As for the peace that we would preserve, I wonder who among us would like to approach the wife or mother whose husband or son has died in South Vietnam and ask them if they think this is a peace that should be maintained indefinitely. Do they mean peace, or do they mean we just want to be left in peace? There can be no real peace while one American is dying someplace in the world for the rest of us. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said, if we lose that war and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro, and in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are? I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a right or left. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down. Up man's old age dream, the ultimate in individual freedom consistent with law and order, or down to the ant heap of totalitarianism. And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or as we were told a few days ago by the president, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people. But they've been a little more explicit in the past and among themselves. And all the things I now quote will have appeared in print. These are not Republican accusations. For example, they have voices that say, the Cold War will, and through our acceptance, not undermine undemocratic socialism. Another voice says, the profit motive has become outmoded. It must be replaced by the incentives of the welfare state. Or, our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. Senator Fulbright has said at Stanford University that the Constitution is outmoded. He referred to the president as our moral teacher and leader, and he says he is hobbled in his task by the restrictions of power imposed on him by this antiquated document. He must be freed so that he can do for us what he knows is best. And Senator Clark of Pennsylvania, another articulate spokesman, defines liberalism as meeting the material needs of the masses through the full power of centralized government. Well, I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term we haven't applied to ourselves in America. But beyond that, the full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those founding fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy. Now, we have no better example of this than government's involvement in the farm economy over the last 30 years. Since 1955, the cost of this program has nearly doubled. 1/4 of farming in America is responsible for 85% of the farm surplus. 3/4 of farming is out on the free market and has known a 21% increase in the per capita consumption of all its produce. You see, that 1/4 of farming that's regulated and controlled by the federal government. In the last 3 years, we've spent $43 in the feed grain program for every dollar bushel of corn we don't grow. Senator Humphrey last week charged that Barry Goldwater, as president, would seek to eliminate farmers. He should do his homework a little better, because he'll find out that we've had a decline of 5 million in the farm population under these government programs. He'll also find that the Democratic administration has sought to get from Congress an extension of the farm program to include that 3/4 that is now free. He'll find that they've also asked for the right to imprison farmers who wouldn't keep books as prescribed by the federal government. The Secretary of Agriculture asked for the right to seize farms through condemnation and resell them to other individuals. And contained in that same program was a provision that would have allowed the federal government to remove 2 million farmers from their soil. At the same time, there's been an increase in the Department of Agriculture employees. There is now 1 for every 30 farms in the United States, and they still can't tell us how 66 shiploads of grain headed for Austria disappeared without a trace, and Billy Saul Estes never left shore. Every responsible farmer and farm organization has repeatedly asked the government to free the farm economy, but now, how are farmers to know what's best for them? The wheat farmers voted against a wheat program. The government passed it anyway. Now the price of bread goes up. The price of wheat to the farmer goes down. Meanwhile, back in the city, under urban renewal, the assault on freedom carries on. Private property rights are so diluted that public interest is almost anything a few government planners decide it should be. In a program that takes from the needy and gives to the greedy, we see such spectacles as in Cleveland, Ohio, a $1.5 million building completed only 3 years ago that must be destroyed to make way for what government officials call a more compatible use of the land. The president tells us he's now going to start building public housing units in the thousands, where heretofore we've only built them in the hundreds. But FHA, the Federal Housing Authority, and the Veterans Administration tell us they have 120,000 housing units they've taken back through mortgage foreclosure. For 3 decades, we've sought to solve the problems of unemployment through government planning. And the more the plans fail, the more the planners plan. The latest is the Area Redevelopment Agency. They've just declared Rice County, Kansas, a depressed area. Rice County, Kansas has 200 oil wells, and the 14,000 people there have over $30 million on deposit in their personal savings in their banks. And when the government tells you you're depressed, lie down and be depressed. We have so many people who can't see a fat man standing beside a thin one without coming to the conclusion that the fat man got that way by taking advantage of the thin one. So they're going to solve all the problems of human misery through government and government planning. Well, now, if government planning and welfare had the answer, and they've had almost 30 years of it, shouldn't we expect government to read the score to us once in a while? Shouldn't they be telling us about the decline each year in the number of people needing help, the reduction in need for public housing? But the reverse is true. Each year the need grows greater, the programs grow greater. We were told 4 years ago that 17 million people went to bed hungry each night. Well, that was probably true. They were all on a diet. But now we're told that 9.3 million families in this country are poverty-stricken on the basis of earning less than $3,000 a year. Welfare spending is 10 times greater than in the dark depths of the Depression. We're spending $45 billion on welfare. Now do a little arithmetic, and you'll find that if we divided the $45 billion up equally among those 9 million poor families, we'd be able to give each family $4,600 a year. And this, added to their present income, should eliminate poverty. Direct aid to the poor, however, is only running about $600 per family. It would seem that someplace there must be some overhead. Now, so we declare a war on poverty, or you too can be a Bobby Baker. Now, do they honestly expect us to believe that if we add $1 billion to the $45 billion we're spending, one more program to the 30-odd we have, and remember, this new program doesn't replace any, it just duplicates existing programs. Do they believe that poverty is suddenly going to disappear by magic? Well, in all fairness, I should explain there is one part of the new program that isn't duplicated. This is the youth feature. We're now going to solve the dropout problem, juvenile delinquency, by reinstituting something like the old CCC camps, the Civilian Conservation Corps, and we're going to put our young people in these camps. But again, we do some arithmetic, and we find that we're going to spend each year just on room and board for each young person we help $4,700 a year. We can send them to Harvard for $2,700. Of course, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting Harvard is the answer to juvenile delinquency. But seriously, what are we doing to those we seek to help? Not too long ago, a judge called me here in Los Angeles. He told me of a young woman who'd come before him for a divorce. She had 6 children, was pregnant with her 7th. Under his questioning, she revealed that her husband was earning $250 a month. She wanted a divorce to get an $80 raise. She's eligible for $330 a month in the Aid to Dependent Children program. She got the idea from 2 women in her neighborhood who had already done that very thing. Yet anytime you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we are denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things. We're never for anything. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that is not so. Now, we're for a provision that destitution should not follow unemployment by reason of old age. And to that end, we have accepted Social Security as a step toward meeting the problem. But we are against those entrusted with this program when they practice deception regarding its fiscal shortcomings. when they charge that any criticism of the program means that we want to end payments to those people who depend on them for a livelihood. They've called it insurance to us in 100 million pieces of literature. But then they appeared before the Supreme Court and they testified it was a welfare program. They only used the word insurance to sell it to the people. And they said Social Security dues are a tax for the general use of the government, and the government has used that tax. There is no fund because Robert Byers, the actuarial head, appeared before a congressional committee and admitted that Social Security, as of this moment, is $298 billion in the hole. But he said there should be no cause for worry because as long as they have the power to tax, they could always take away from the people whatever they needed to bail them out of trouble. And they are doing just that. A young man, 21 years of age, working at an average salary, his Social Security contribution would, in the open market, buy him an insurance policy that would guarantee $220 a month at age 65. The government promises $127. He could live it up until he's 31 and then take out a policy that would pay more than Social Security. Now, are we so lacking in business sense that we can't put this program on a sound basis so that people who do require those payments will find them when they are due, that the cupboard isn't bare? Barry Goldwater thinks we can. At the same time, can't we introduce voluntary features that would permit a citizen who can do better on his own to be excused upon presentation of evidence that he has made provision for his non-earning years? Should we not allow a widow with children to work and not lose the benefits supposedly paid for by her deceased husband? Shouldn't you and I be allowed to declare who our beneficiaries will be under this program, which we cannot do? I think we're for telling our senior citizens that no one in this country should be denied medical care because of a lack of funds. But I think we are against forcing all citizens, regardless of need, into a compulsory government program, especially when we have such examples, as was announced last week, when France admitted that their Medicare program is now bankrupt. They have come to the end of the road. In addition, was Barry Goldwater so irresponsible when he suggested that our government give up its program of deliberate, planned inflation so that when you do get your Social Security pension, $1 will buy $1's worth and not 45 cents worth? I think we're for an international organization where the nations of the world can seek peace. But I think we are against subordinating American interests to an organization that has become so structurally unsound that today you can muster a 2/3 vote on the floor of the General Assembly among nations that represent less than 10% of the world's population. I think we are against the hypocrisy of assailing our allies because here and there they cling to a colony while we engage in a conspiracy of silence and never open our mouths about the millions of people enslaved in the Soviet colonies in their satellite nations. I think we are for aiding our allies by the sharing of our material blessings with those nations which share our fundamental beliefs. But we are against doling out money government to government, creating bureaucracy, if not socialism, all over the world. We set out to help 19 countries. We are helping 107. We've spent $146 billion. With that money, we bought a $2 million yacht for Haile Selassie. We bought dress suits for Greek undertakers, extra wives for the Kenyan government officials. We bought 1,000 TV sets for a place where they have no electricity. In the last 6 years, 52 nations have bought $7 billion worth of our goods, and all 52 are receiving foreign aid from this country. No government ever voluntarily reduces itself in size. So government's programs, once launched, never disappear. Actually, a government bureau is the nearest thing to eternal life we will ever see on this earth. Federal employees number 2.5 million, and federal, state, and local, 1 out of 6 of the nation's workforce is employed by government. These proliferating bureaus with their thousands of regulations have cost us many of our constitutional safeguards. How many of us realize that today federal agents can invade a man's property without a warrant? They can impose a fine without a formal hearing, let alone trial by jury. And they can seize and sell his property at auction to enforce the payment of that fine. In Chico County, Arkansas, James Weir overplanted his rice allotment. The government obtained a $17,000 judgment, and a U.S. Marshal sold his 960-acre farm at auction. The government said it was necessary as a warning to others to make the system work. Last February 19th at the University of Minnesota, Norman Thomas, 6 times candidate for president on the Socialist Party ticket, said, if Barry Goldwater became president, he would stop the advance of socialism in the United States. And I think that's exactly what he will do. But as a former Democrat, I can tell you Norman Thomas isn't the only man who has drawn this parallel to socialism with the present administration. Because back in 1936, Mr. Democrat himself, Al Smith, the great American, came before the American people and charged that the leadership of his party was taking the party of Jefferson, Jackson, and Cleveland down the road under the banners of Marx, Lenin, and Stalin. And he walked away from his party, and he never returned until the day he died, because to this day, the leadership of that party has been taking that party, that honorable party, down the road in the image of the Labour Socialist Party of England. Now, it doesn't require expropriation or confiscation of private property or business to impose socialism on a people. What does it mean whether you hold the deed to the title to the property or business if the government holds the power of life and death over that business or property? And such machinery already exists. The government can find some charge to bring against any concern it chooses to prosecute. Every businessman has his own tale of harassment. Somewhere a perversion has taken place. Our natural, unalienable rights are now considered to be a dispensation of the government. And freedom has never been so fragile, so close to slipping from our grasp as it is at this moment. Our Democratic opponents seem unwilling to debate these issues. They want to make you and I believe that this is a contest between two men, that we're to choose just between two personalities. Well, what of this man that would destroy and is destroying? They would destroy that which he represents. The ideas that you and I hold dear. Is he the brash and shallow and trigger-happy man they say he is? Well, I've been privileged to know him when. I knew him long before he ever dreamed of trying for high office, and I can tell you personally, I've never known a man in my life I believed so incapable of being a dishonest or dishonorable thing. This is a man who, in his own business, before he entered politics, instituted a profit-sharing plan before unions had ever thought of it. He put in health and medical insurance for all his employees. He took 50% of the profits before taxes and set up a retirement program, a pension plan for all his employees. He sent monthly checks for life to an employee who was ill and couldn't work. He provides nursing care for the children of mothers who work in the stores. When Mexico was ravaged by the floods in the Rio Grande, he climbed in his airplane and flew medicine and supplies down there. An ex-GI told me how he met him. It was the week before Christmas during the Korean War, and he was at the Los Angeles airport trying to get a ride home to Arizona for Christmas. And he said there were a lot of servicemen there and no seats available on the planes. And then a voice came over the loudspeaker and said, "Any men in uniform wanting a ride to Arizona? Go to runway such and such." And they went down there. And there was a fellow named Barry Goldwater sitting in his plane. Every day in those weeks before Christmas, all day long, he'd load up the plane, fly it to Arizona, fly them to their homes, fly back over to get another load. During the hectic split-second timing of a campaign, this is a man who took time out to sit beside an old friend who was dying of cancer. His campaign managers were understandably impatient, but he said, "There aren't many left who care what happens to her. I'd like her to know that I care." This is a man who said to his 19-year-old son, "There is no foundation like the rock of honesty and fairness, and when you begin to build your life on that rock with the cement of the faith in God that you have, then you have a real start." This is not a man who could carelessly send other people's sons to war. And that is the issue of this campaign that makes all the other problems I've discussed academic, unless we realize we're in a war that must be won. Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. And they say if we'll only avoid any direct confrontation with the enemy, he'll forget his evil ways and learn to love us. All who oppose them are indicted as warmongers. Then say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer, but not an easy answer, but simple. If you and I have the courage to tell our elected officials that we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right, we cannot buy our security, our freedom from the threat of the bomb by committing an immorality so great as saying to 1 billion human beings now enslaved behind the Iron Curtain, give up your dreams of freedom, because to save our own skins, we're willing to make a deal with your slave masters. Alexander Hamilton said, a nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one. Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second by surrendering. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement, and it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time we will have been weakened from within, spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better red than dead. Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because these voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis did not die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. And this is the meaning in the phrase of Barry Goldwater's Peace Through Strength. Winston Churchill said, the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. And he said, time and space, and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take that last step into 1,000 years of darkness. We will keep in mind and remember that Barry Goldwater has faith in us. He has faith that you and I have the ability and the dignity and the right to make our own decisions and determine our own destiny. Thank you very much. Close quote. Ronald Wilson Reagan, 27 October 1964. And that's it.
Tactical nuke incoming!
I do love me some Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, I know some of the things he say. Are you familiar with Mr. Reagan on YouTube? He's
oh yeah.
He's one of those upper crust elite types, but at the same time, he does a pretty good job of paraphrasing Reagan quite often, in a more modern context, I guess you could say. But then again, that particular speech is quite modern in context if you think about it, because you just add another 30 years to the 50 years he was talking about. Poof.
Yeah, and another zero to the numbers of dollars, and it's still just as relevant today as it was 60 years ago.
Absolutely. All right, so my turn.
Go for it.
We're gonna do some funky stuff like this and like that. All right, so most secure modern election in modern history, right? Secure, perfectly secure. There's absolutely no shenanigans whatsoever.
Absolutely immaculate and unblemished and perfect, like as the white driven snow.
Unquestionably, right? But not every election is that election. And some elections are a bit more secure than others. Perish the thought. I know. I hear tell that in other countries they have some unsecure elections. But I don't know. That's news to me. However, it turns out that a buddy of mine on YouTube has discovered his own little vile snake's pit of nefarious conduct. And I want you to decide whether or not this might constitute some form of possible election type shenanigans and meddling. I don't know. I'm an uneducated plebe. All I know is what I can see with my own lying eyes.
Got your back, Mayor.
Nothing better than that, right?
Twice? Stacks of votes. What? I'm sure she's just sharing recipes.
1 minute later.
Teachers lock the door, so you better go this way.
Thank you.
All right, so this is from News Now Ninja. I think he's added a Gonzo to his name since Joey Surreal Camera, or no, it was the other. Oh my God, I forgot his name. Jay's Surreal Camera. Since he died, everybody's gone Gonzo, and I respect it. That's cool beans. He's a good man, excellent auditor, really good at what he did. But this gentleman has discovered this footage and decided to edit it together by going and visiting the location where this took place, so that you can kind of get a general idea of the type of people that are functioning in this particular municipality.
That's a naughty joke, Queen Bird.
Boy, she hiding more than salami, honey. Let me tell you.
Yeah, quite possibly. Might be hiding that salami several different ways.
They not just the salami is what I'm saying. There might be some condiments involved too, some toppings, maybe chunks. Don't spray the stuff all over the camera, please.
Why did she hold on? Why did she lock the door?
Not sure.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is News Now Ninja, and today's video is a huge shout out to Leroy Truth, who's brought the situation to my attention. And the situation is that a man supposedly just won an election, even though he's been found of corruption in the past. And the man that I'm speaking of is the mayor of Connecticut, who's also been found guilty of felonies in the past. And the real question is, has he done it again? Let me know what you think about this video in the comment section. All original links will be in the description, and let's get straight to the video.
News out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. The primary election in Bridgeport, Connecticut for mayor looks like it was tampered with blatantly by Mayor Joe Ganem's campaign staff. We have what appears to be video evidence of ballot stuffing by Wanda.
Got your back, Mayor.
Nothing better than that, right?
Allegedly, I don't know. Allegedly, I suppose.
Seems like the news media should be interested in a story like this. Just not a peep out of any of them. It falls to citizen journalists to report on this stuff. Isn't that strange?
Bridgeport Mayor Joe Ganim since 2015. AP reports. Bridgeport Mayor Joe Ganim, who went to prison for corruption and then regained his old job back 8 years ago in a remarkable political comeback, has won the Democratic nomination for another term.
Because of course he has.
Because of course he has. Danger music necessary? I don't think danger music is necessary.
And you know what I've still never heard from anyone, and I have asked a lot of times, is give me the non-corrupt explanation for this behavior.
Right? Name one series of events that ends up with her going to the same ballot box, 3 or 4 times in a 10-hour period.
Yep.
I'm sure she's just dropping off recipes. Or,
irrespective of the fact that in a number of different states, it's a verified fact that many of these ballots from these ballot dumps had no other office voted for except president. There was a vote for Joe Biden, and the whole rest of the ballot was blank. Again, I would like to hear the non-corrupt explanation for that.
Most secure election
in history.
Ever.
And you hate democracy if you question that assertion.
I don't question it in the least. I'm standing here telling you that it's obvious and clear in my lying eyes.
Yep. Stop being such a damn conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't see why anybody would think that maybe a group of people might have participated in some form of nefarious activity involving the possible nomination of various individuals in various points of power for the political gains of various other individuals who want that power. That would never happen.
And when they say most secure election in history, what they really mean is we got the result we wanted. Therefore, right. The election is spotless and immaculate and must never be questioned at all.
Absolutely.
And that's the same thing they mean when they use the word democracy. Democracy means our guy wins. Period.
Right. Democracy means two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. Yep.
And if you try to elect a president that we don't like, then you hate democracy, and we will indict him and put him in jail.
Don't be so mean. Folks can want more. This is us doing a better job, believe it or not. I'm sorry. We had a pretty good run going there, but I got distracted. Grim's like, you want a super, try better. Have a nice day. Excelsior! I got to give him the participation trophy of the chat there. I'm going to give him that. Right. But Bridgeport, nearly 4 years after a Hearst investigation into the alleged misuse of absentee ballots in the contentious 2019 Bridgeport Democratic mayoral primary that was narrowly won by Mayor Joe Ganim, state elections officials have recommended possible criminal violations by 3 people aligned with the mayor's campaign, including a member of the city council to the chief state's attorney. Nothing to see here, folks.
Nope. Please move along. Nothing to see here. I am not standing in front of an exploding fireworks factory. That's your imagination. Please move along.
Damn your lying eyes.
Damn your lying eyes.
Now, this is Leroy Truth, and he's the one that's actually doing the on-the-ground investigations in this area. And I've gotten in touch with him on Facebook, and he's unbelievably busy, but I'm trying to get him in for a interview, 30 minutes if I can get him. But yeah, hold on, let's see. Bridgeport Mayor Joe Ganim, who went to prison for corruption. Oh yeah, no, that's the same little Wikipedia article thing. All right, let's see what he's saying.
For absentee ballots bin, and that's
danger music.
This is breaking news. The state attorney general in Connecticut immediately do a criminal investigation. And by the way, this is nothing new for the Joe Ganim campaign, as Joe Ganim spent 7 years in federal prison for racketeering and other crimes he did while he was mayor, yet still somehow got reelected. And then 4 years ago,
he is Marion Barry
investigation into election tampering in the
wait, what?
Who does he think he is, Marion Barry? Go into prison and getting reelected after you get out? Jesus Christ.
I didn't get that reference at first.
Election rigging and ballot stuffing for absentee ballots then. And that's actually right now that is happening. And an article came out here. Let me show you this. Article came out September 1st. And this is insane. And this article came out September 1st. And we're 3 to Bridgeport. Mayor Joe Ganem's 2019 campaign.
Do the thing, dude. Do the thing.
Which thing am I doing?
You're doing
Thank you, Queen.
There you go. We'll work on that later. Not have to knock the rust off that one.
That's lovely of you.
It's a beautiful thing, baby. I really appreciate it.
Well, and I was gonna comment on the last thing you said, where you said it seems thousands must have done things like this. We only see 1/10 of 0.5% of the corruption. You're absolutely right. None of this can ever take place without the people who are supposed to be our news media being fully complicit and compromised in these activities and consciously refusing to report on them. None of this stuff happens if journalists are interested in journalisming, because it falls to guys like this, citizen journalists on YouTube, to do the reporting that the assholes in New York and Washington with the big legacy news media outlets get paid millions of dollars to do and refuse to.
Absolutely. It only takes for good men to do nothing for evil to prosper.
You're damn right.
One of the complaints I have on my channel quite often is people want to talk about there being the difference between bad cops and good cops, and how bad cops are just a few bad apples and la-di-da-da. The issue I have with that is that's not the saying. The saying is a few bad apples spoil the bunch, and it's accurate with cops, because if you have 2 cops in a department of 30, and these 2 cops are dirty, 10 people, 20 people in that department either know or suspect that cop is dirty, and now they're dirty. 1 bad apple spoils the bunch.
And there are some police and sheriff's departments that just have a culture of corruption and have for a long time, just as the FBI has.
Well, think about in recent years, there's been this big push for this thing called civil asset forfeiture. Mm-hmm. You can no longer ride an interstate safely, because if you have more than $4,000 or more than $2,000, it depends on what town, what county, what state, and where you're at, as to how much is determined to be drug money just by dint of existing.
Right.
And then the only way to get that money back, or that property, or whatever it is they decide to seize from you, is to sue the property with a government lawyer. The government provides the property a lawyer to state that it is drug money, and you have to prove it is not somehow.
And they'll make you spend twice as much as that amount getting that money back.
No, it's worse, because in order to get the money back, first you have to sue the department that took it. They will give it to the state. You then have to rework your suit into state court to sue the state, and they will give it to the feds. Then you have to rework your suit again to put it into federal court to sue the federal court to get the money back, and it's going to cost you $300,000 to do that lawsuit. And if you lose, you're out.
Yep, and that goes back in large part to the intrinsic evils of bureaucracy that Ronald Reagan was talking about in that speech.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a couple of things would fix this. If you did a little bit of more, what do they call it? Bonding of police forces. You have individual officers who are bonded for individual amounts based off of performance, and not off of based off basically complaints is what it comes down to, and not off of actual like quota performance numbers, that type of stuff. Right. But we're digressing way off the freaking target. Today is a perfectly, totally secure election.
Staff recommended for criminal charges. And guess what? The State Election Enforcement Commission has recommended that 3 of Bridgeport Mayor Joe Ganem's campaign workers face possible criminal charges in connection with the alleged misuse of absentee ballots in the city's 2019 mayoral election. And it looks like this is proof they did it again. The names of the workers were obtained by Hearst, Connecticut media after the commission voted in June to refer the evidence for possible charges against City Council member Alfredo Castillo, City Hall employee Wanda Peter Pataki, who is the woman you will see who appears to be stuffing ballots illegally, unlawfully, right in front of the government center, blatantly. She's also the woman who Mayor Ganem directed her to lock me out of the government center when I attempted to interview him last week. Recently, it turns out, 3 of Joe Ganem's staffers are being investigated for criminal conduct during the 2019 primary. So I'm going to ask Mayor Ganem comment on this and what's going on. And here we are. So
is it just me, or am I getting some major Telly Savalas energy off this man?
That is a very Telly Savalas-y dome that dude has got.
Not just his dome. I'm talking about body language and movement. He looks like he's ready to
give him a little lollipop and he's a dead ringer.
So we're going to go in and let us proceed. Now look at this giant red flag right here. All weapons are prohibited on this premises. All guests are required to sign in and provide ID.
There's no number, but that's an illegal order.
Of my Fourth Amendment right and every human being's Fourth Amendment right.
So they have to provide
are not required.
Yep.
By any stretch to do this. Let's proceed.
They had that shit made at fucking Amazon.
Damn right.
The receptionist has locked us out. Locked down the government center.
She just locked the door, so you better go
she
this
opened
way.
the door. I saw them coming and went and opened the door.
Why did she hold on.
All right, hold on. I want
why did she lock the door?
Not sure. She just
protect this woman. Protect this woman at all costs.
Oh, seriously.
She was our savior for this video. Otherwise, this video may have taken another few months to occur. So this woman deserves our accolades. She is a Sigma woman. She wins. She won the internet today. She gets Sasquatch respect.
9,000 internets.
Right.
came and locked the door.
Wow. So the doors were open and some woman just came and locked the doors.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So listen to that. They actually locked the doors on us here.
Where you guys going?
Disclaimer. All references to mobster or mob do not refer to any known, unknown, or suggested links between Mayor Ganem and an organized group or other criminals. It is based on his proven mobster-like behavior, criminal convictions, 7 years in prison for racketeering and corruption. We do not support any candidate in the upcoming Bridgeport, Connecticut mayoral election.
Video correction.
That was pretty fast.
As Ganem, we don't respect him enough to care. For your reference, it's Ganem. For mobster mayor.
Present a valid municipal, state, or federal
That's
form
pretty
of
hardcore.
notification to be issued a visitor pass, which shall be
Tell me how you really
Can you see
feel.
your papers?
I'm not giving away my Fourth Amendment right to go into the people's building. This is completely wrong.
You can read, right?
You see your tongue. You can.
What a dick. What a dick. What if I can't read, you simple fuck? What if I can't?
Well, but and people do whatever they want and violate any law and feel like they don't have to be accountable to anyone because the bounds of our partisan tribalism seem to be limitless. How the fuck can you go to prison for 7 years for corruption and immediately get reelected to the same office? I mean, seriously, what would it take for you not to vote for whatever idiot your party puts in front of you on the ballot? I know I asked that a lot, but I'm going to keep asking.
I get what you're saying. I don't understand how it is that some of these people vote for failed policies in cities, and when they finally get fed up with the city, they move to some bigger country town that's almost a city, and then vote for failed policies.
And immediately vote for the same bullshit that made them leave the last place. Yep. Right. Which is what countless Californians are doing right now.
Right. No, I mean, Austin is a perfect example of what the Overton window shift is going to cause. This whole entire propaganda campaign is working lovely. They are crashing the politics and the economics of California, to force Californians to leave the state, putting them in other states voting exactly the same way their mama voted.
Yeah, because of mindless, unthinking tribalism. And even still, there seems to be such an astounding disconnect where people don't understand the causal relationship between their voting behavior and everything in society going downhill and turning to shit.
It's overregulation. It comes down to too much overarching government influence. It has to do with a quote from a movie, and it may have been a legitimate quote from Letters. I feel like I've read it somewhere before. But it's, why would I trade a king 5,000 miles away for 5,000 kings 5 miles away? And that is what we have done. That is where we are.
That's a good one.
That is the position we find ourselves in. Is there is a small patch of muddy water up in DC that seems to hold the entire cesspit of the entire U.S. If the government disappeared tomorrow for 2 weeks, your life would be better until the international breakdown would start taking place. But
yes, and also if our two ossified, institutionalized, corrupt as the day is long parties that we've insisted on keeping around for the last 150 years disappeared tomorrow, everybody's life would get materially better immediately.
True. You know how much money would be left in the economy? Dear Lord. Okay. I mean, I don't know. Self-lighting glass floored parking lot.
Read rights? That's not very professional. That's not very kind. It's not very welcoming, is it? I mean, is it?
Papers, please.
That's why I have a laugh in my voice, because I'm trying to be friendly, while also criticizing at the same time.
I see that.
So,
very good at that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But when you say,
That took a lot of practice. So you can read this,
Yeah, but this is
and while you read this, I'll be calling the police department.
why would you call the police department?
Once you read that, you'll
So you
figure it out.
understand this is a big
I got to give him a little bit of credit.
It's not like
At least
some
he's
mob
honest.
I understand. You know, the mayor went to prison for 7 years for mob-related.
Yep.
That's why people. But people call them.
All this, and I'm calling the police department.
Why would you call the police? This is the First Amendment. Wow.
I got a question. Excuse me. I got a question about the sign. Excuse me. Why are you ignoring me? I'm literally asking you a question.
Because I can.
Look at this.
Exactly.
They locked all these people out. Mayor Gannon. This is the experience that he has created for we the people. It's locked down, locked out, locked up. Which he's been all of those things in his life. And it's Leroy Truth Investigations. So let him know I'm here to get his comments on the allegations that there is election intimidation already happening with mail-in ballots. All right, and if you're a mute, then who do I need to talk with, since you are obviously not someone capable of helping? Who else is there that can inform the mayor that I am here, Mayor Gannon, I am here to get a comment on that?
Officer Vickens was labeled Goon Vickens because he's basically like some mobster enforcer, indistinguishable, right? Just do whatever he's told. The sergeant said, no questions asked, arrest him. I mean, that's pretty wild. It really doesn't, it's not a high quality organization in that situation.
No. And that is a perfect example. When Joe Burns was arrested, every officer needs to know why they're arresting someone. Oh, why? Because he wants to see the mayor, and the mayors have been ignoring him for months and months so he can get help that they arrested him. Not once, but twice. And coincidentally, they arrested him the day after my interview with him came out, revealing the truth about Mayor Gannon's. On allegations that for the past 2 weeks leading up to the primary, people were saying there was election pressuring to vote for him. People from his campaign canvassing committee and people were going to houses and asking to take the ballots, the absentee ballots, and that they would fill them out.
Yep.
I mean, the list goes on. And now it looks like the mayor, Joe Gannon campaign, their hand has been caught in the cookie jar on video that was taken from security footage inside the Bridgeport, Connecticut Government Center. Make sure to call the Attorney General, email Connecticut Attorney General, demand that there be a criminal investigation launched immediately. Call Bridgeport, Connecticut Town Hall, City Hall, demand Mayor Gannon and all people associated with this criminality resign immediately.
All right. So what do you think about that? Is that a secure election?
Well, the most absurd. I mean, it is absurd enough when you suggest that an election is completely perfect and immaculate and totally without flaw. Because let's face it, there has been fraud on both sides in every election in the history of democracy. Vote fraud is a thing that happens. And that's why we have dozens and dozens and dozens of laws in place to prevent such things. But it's even worse. Of all the elections to make that assertion about, the one where they shotgun blasted unsolicited mail ballots out to every voter on the rolls, living and dead, because automatically that election is going to be the least secure in history. That is just a fact about the world.
Right.
But not light-skinned. That is
My bad. I'm trying to do a closeout over here. We're gonna. How long you want to run, man? I know we've gone a little bit over the hour we were planning.
I don't know. Let's do an hour and a half, maybe.
Okay. All right. We can do that. Let me figure out what I'm looking for over here.
We could listen to "Get Off My Lawn" Blues.
If you wish. Yeah. Well, you got that queued up.
Don't mind if I do.
Hit that shit, bro.
God damn it.
Just
Back when the waters were muddy, back when the big wolf howled, when John Wayne cocked his carbine and told the bad guys get out of town, when Goyles was Goyles and boys was boys, just like Archie Bunker sang, and a man was free to think compassionately without getting his damn self hanged. If you can't see it, dog all around, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. You got a house and you got a spouse, you got a kid or two or three. You wanna send them to a decent school to learn math and history. They come home speaking Wilkes-Barre. If you object, they call you a hick. And the teachers and the principal are all a bunch of purple-haired, lit-pierced lunatics. If that's the kind of shit you're on, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. You got fakes digging in your trash cans. There's junkies cooking up in the bar. And walk your goddamn dog outside if it's 1 minute after dark. It feels like the bad people always win and the good ones always lose. Sometimes it seems that there ain't much left to do but drown in pills and booze. If that's the kind of world you choose, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. The little men in the last row said they just want to keep you from harm. I say the hell with some of these needles. We'll have to stick it in my dead arm. Then we give a fucking $100 billion away to some dude in a muscle shirt. And they tell us that the man we gotta respect is some pervert wearing a skirt. If you're a lady with a 10-inch You spend your life playing by the rules, show up early, work real hard, do all the things you're supposed to do, get your hands all bruised and scarred. What does it get you out? What do you gain? Holding up your end of the deal. When your country's being run by complete destruction, don't give a damn how you feel. You bastards only know how to steal. Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. Now I'm a simple man, simple taste, and a thing and a simple song. You can listen and not, but there's gonna be a reckoning before. You can fool some people some of the time, just like old Abel Lincoln said. But you try and fool everybody all the time. We're gonna take you to the woodshed. So till the moment my ass drops dead, get off my lawn. Get off my lawn.
So you say you got a new computer. So you say you got a new computer, huh? You're muted.
I think that's because one of my earbuds just ran out of power.
That's why I only use one at a time.
It ain't one thing, it's a goddamn other.
Ain't it? So are they still working or they dead?
I got one left.
Okay. It'll be dead soon though. Okay. We'll try to reach this until I wrap them up right quick. Okay, so how do you feel about how the show went as far as the planned part?
It was fun. I think we should do it every week.
I think so. I think if we did it every week, next week I'd like to try it starting from my channel and you StreamYarding in and see if that activates all of your stuff. It should.
Yeah, and if I upgrade my StreamYard account, then I can do multiple destinations, which I think accomplishes the same thing.
That's what I've got. I've got the
basic.
Yeah. It should work either way, but I'm already paying for it, so
yeah. So let's try that next time and just see what happens.
We'll do that. I appreciate you coming in, Queen Bird. That's really cool. Grim Ben. I mean, I know you came in kind of late, but I have hands and no arms because I ain't got nobody now. Yeah, that's all I got. What do you want to do with the last few minutes we got over here? I've got some more shorts. They're queued up. Did your other earbud just die?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna roll that beautiful bean footage then.
Yeah, go for it.
What are the humans doing?
I need to take my medication.
Because we all
I
need
do
our
this to
medication.
my dog all the time.
Oh, for Christ's
You
sake.
give medications to dogs.
Oh no, I need that. Oh, it's dissolving in there. I got most of it. Oh, it tastes so bad. I'm gonna swallow it down.
What possesses people to do these things on camera?
I couldn't
Backwash
tell
pill
you,
water.
man.
Just what the doctor ordered.
I just want to send pictures of this to people that want to go to war with the U.S. and just be like, these are not soldiers. This isn't a military program. This is a group of rednecks who got hopped up on methamphetamine and moonshine and decided their truck needed bigger tires.
Yep, pretty much.
This isn't a division of the military. This is just some rednecks, bored rednecks with too much money.
Win is a win. A win is a win. I don't care what y'all say. A win is a win.
Hey, if it wasn't for bored rednecks with too much money, we never would have had the Higgins boat and couldn't have invaded Normandy.
Never would have had the Higgins boat, but that shit would have come down. At the time, there was a distinct disparity between the understanding of distance, right? Because the measurements hadn't really been settled down worldwide at that point in time. There were still things like furlongs and stones and shit like that were legitimate.
Yeah, we can blame the English for all that shit.
Okay, sure. But we were measuring things in mile, and they were figuring, you know, how long's a mile? Their mile was a little shorter than our mile. So when they did the apples to apples comparison, they concluded that the North American continent was approximately the size as Europe, and that is not accurate at all. It's really not. On a pound for pound basis, we kind of have a beefier midriff, as it were. Right. And then there's all of South America that hasn't even been accounted for. But yeah, the amount of corn-fed white boys we could feed into that meat grinder was just not calculated.
Because it was too damn high.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, is like the Germans were like, we can take Europe. And the Americans was like, really? You have any idea how much corn we grow over here? Any clue? I mean, we're sending surplus, what we call surplus.
Yep, and you know who had an intimate understanding of that reality was Admiral Yamamoto.
Yeah,
because he had gone to school at Yale and spent his summers traveling all over the country, and he went home and said, guys, you know, we can start a war. We might kick ass for 6 months or a year, but we ain't fucking winning.
Right, because when they come bringing a really big stick.
Tactical nuke incoming!
I don't know. I'm overusing it.
Doesn't matter how much better our equipment is. Doesn't matter how much better our tactics are. It doesn't even matter if we've got a man-to-man advantage over them. We are not winning that freaking war.
Awaking a sleeping giant. Damn
and
right.
filled him with a terrible resolve.
Right.
It's a great quote, even though it's made up.
Yeah, but it's phenomenal. It really is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, and it sums up the whole thing. It's probably exactly what he was thinking at the time.
Oh, yeah, a gun behind every blade of grass isn't a bad analogy for what you run into coming around Middle Texas. There's not a whole lot of grass out there. I'd give you more guns than grass in certain parts of Texas.
You know, and if Midway had gone differently, if we hadn't sunk all 4 of their carriers that day, they might have been able to take Hawaii outright. But, you know, all that does really is extend the war by a couple of years. It doesn't change the ultimate result.
I'm not sure it would have extended the war. It may have contracted the war because there would have been less resistance against the development and the Manhattan Project and the actions that actually ended the war. It may have ended.
Well, and also the farther out that their sphere of conquest goes, it just lengthens their supply lines that much more.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So ultimately, I mean, that's the thing. Had they taken Hawaii, the U.S.'s response would have been, what do they call it? Proportional. You know how the U.S. does proportional, right?
Yeah, I mean, all the terrible resolve they filled us with after Pearl Harbor, it just would have been exponentially more.
Yeah, and you'd have had even more old men and little boys lying about their age to join the military.
Yep.
And it might have gone the other way. Instead of folks hopping the fence to get out of America to keep from being drafted, folks may have hopped the fence to get in to participate in the draft, because the American ideal lives within every individual spirit, provided they have the will to practice their own freedoms. And that was pretty good. I really need to write that down. I'm sorry, I ruined it. Shit.
Yeah, I think next week I kind of like the whole like 5-minute decline of Western civilization news roundup, and then instead of a speech, let's just do a military history topic.
Okay. And in that case, I will go looking for something recently current eventsy type something. It may be new.
Oftentimes I just look for this date in history, and I'm almost always able to find something.
Hey, do a 1 minute segment of this date in history. You can upload it as a short and use it in the show.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, bud. Let's do the play out. I'm gonna throw you up big screen. You tell everybody what's what.
Okay. Thanks very much for joining us. Happy to have you on behalf of Squatch and myself. Get off our lawn.